9-1-1 has always been a show that thrives on chaos, and Season 9, Episode 2, Spiraling, takes that chaos to an entirely new altitude, literally. In this installment, Hen Wilson and Athena Grant find themselves in outer space, which, on paper, sounds completely absurd. But then again, this is the same show that once unleashed a bee-nado, yes, a bee tornado, staged a catastrophic tsunami, dropped multiple earthquakes on Los Angeles, had a sniper take out a firefighter mid-rescue, and even struck one of its main characters with lightning. At this point, disbelief isn't just meant to be suspended. It's been launched into orbit right alongside Athena and Hen. And yet, ironically, the most unbelievable part of Spiraling isn't the part that takes place among the stars. What feels painfully plausible, almost depressingly so, is why they're stuck up there, hurtling toward disaster. The culprit? A billionaire with more ego than sense, who ignores glaring safety warnings in favor of his latest vanity project. Sound familiar? That kind of hubris doesn't even need science fiction to be terrifyingly real. Trip Hauser, in his blinding confidence, decides to proceed with the launch, despite being told there's a nearly 50-50 chance it could go wrong. The result is exactly what anyone could predict: chaos, panic, and near death. Does this setup make for compelling television? Well, that's debatable. The space storyline teeters between being thematically ambitious and slightly ridiculous. On one hand, it works as a meditation on mortality and the fragility of human ambition, how easily everything we build can come crashing down. On the other, it struggles to feel essential. For Athena, the mission's true weight lies in the danger of the situation, but in what it represents. Her ongoing grief following the death being untethered, and this trip to space feels like a metaphor for how lost she's become. But for the audience, the emotional stakes feel somewhat muted. After all, this is still just the second episode of the season, and the story's tension doesn't yet match the show's usual heart-stopping standards. It's solid, sure, but far from out of this world. Spiraling isn't the spectacle of space, it's Athena herself. She's not only physically trapped aboard a failing spacecraft, but also mentally and emotionally spiraling under the weight of her grief. It's not just about her fear of dying in space, it's about how the world has continued to move forward while she feels frozen in time. Everyone else seems to be coping, rebuilding, or at least pretending to function. But for Athena, life without Bobby still feels hollow. That sense of isolation, the dissonance between how she's expected to act and how she truly feels, is perhaps the most realistic and painful part of the episode. The ripple effects of Bobby's death extend far beyond Athena. Her son, Harry, is caught in his own storm of emotion, trapped in the anger phase of grief and lashing out at everyone around him. Part of his frustration stems from his fear of losing his mother, just as he lost his father. Watching Athena risk her life on yet another dangerous mission reopens wounds that haven't even begun to heal. Harry doesn't know how to express his emotions in a healthy way, so he channels them into defiance and resentment, a reaction that feels heartbreakingly. Meanwhile, May Grant, ever the peacekeeper and emotional anchor of the family, is quietly struggling too. She's always been the one to understand, to mediate, to step into the role of caretaker. But beneath that calm exterior lies her own pain. Just because she's not yelling or withdrawing doesn't mean she isn't grieving. In fact, her restraint might be what makes her struggle even harder to notice. The Grant family's tragedy isn't that they're grieving, it's that they're doing it separately. Each of them is lost in their own orbit, unable to reach out and reconnect. That disconnection feels central to the theme of spiraling. Grief isn't something that simply fades. It lingers, reshaping the people it touches. As the narration and tone of the episode suggest, grief isn't something you overcome, it's something you endure. But endurance becomes easier when you have others to lean on. Unfortunately, Athena and her family haven't quite figured out how to grieve together, and that emotional distance makes their pain feel all the more. The episode's title, Spiraling, takes on multiple meanings. There's the literal spiral of a malfunctioning spacecraft, but also the emotional spiral that each character is experiencing back on Earth. The writers seem to be using the chaos in space as a metaphor for the chaos within. However, the episode occasionally gets bogged down by its own spectacle. Much of the runtime is devoted to the logistics of surviving the mission, patching leaks, rerouting systems, communicating with ground control, leaving less room to explore the emotional consequences of Bobby's death in depth. One can only hope that future episodes will slow down enough to let those emotional threads breathe. On the ground, however, we get a welcome spotlight on Karen Wilson, who finally gets her moment to shine after 9 seasons of mostly supporting her wife's storylines. For once, Karen isn't just the spouse waiting anxiously for updates. She's the one leading the charge, using her expertise and determination to bring Hen home. It's fitting that she's the one who steps into the hero role here. She has both the technical know-how and the emotional resolve to handle the crisis, and she refuses to rest until her wife is safe. What makes this a particularly satisfying episode for Karen is that it gives her space to be a fully realized character. We see her vulnerability, her frustration, and her quiet strength. She's jealous, worried, brilliant, and brave, all at once. 9-1 often uses Karen to highlight Hen's emotional depth, but here she gets to be the star in her own right. Not as Hen's wife, not just as a mother, but as Karen Wilson, badass rocket scientist, a woman capable of saving the day when it truly counts. In the end, Spiraling is a strange blend of the outrageous and the deeply human, an episode that asks